In anime, we all have our favorite characters, and there's nothing worse than when your favorite character, well, kicks the bucket. And unfortunately, this seems to happen quite a lot. A lot of our favorite characters, these side characters built up with incredible backstories, will eventually get killed off. And unfortunately, Naruto is no exception to that rule. Many times, side characters that we resonate with or that we love will get built up and get whole arcs dedicated to them where you get to know them as a character, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, this can't be good. And while that happened with characters like Jiraiya and Neji and Zabuza, the one character people seem to have the most qualm with dying off was Shisui. Before we get into all that, guys, today we have a returning sponsor sponsoring today's video, Opera GX. Listen, every single person has different tastes for different animes and manga that they like. So if we all have different tastes for anime and manga, why shouldn't we have different tastes for our web browsers? And being able to customize your web browser to your taste is exactly what Opera GX offers you. Opera offers you customizable themes, animated wallpapers, and colors for your browser. You can switch between dark and light mode. And these animated wallpapers include a ton of anime options. Like my personal favorite, the Hunter x Hunter Gon animated wallpaper. But if that's not your bag, all you have to do is go to customization and download other wallpapers. But Opera offers you more than just customization. Opera has made my watch through of One Piece 1,000 times easier. You see, Opera has a functionality called Video Pop-Out that allows you to separate the video that you're watching from its browser into an adjustable rectangular frame, making it incredibly easy to watch a video, like for me, One Piece, while doing work. All you have to do is click the red button on the bottom of the left of the screen and it'll window your video. And as you switch between tabs, the video will follow you. Let's say you don't want to be distracted by video while you're working. Well, Opera's got you covered on music. With Opera, you get the functionality called GX Player that allows you to sign into Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube Music all directly from your sidebar, keeping all of your music streaming services in one place. And should you begin to start streaming a video or playing an audio from one of the tabs in Opera GX, it will pause the music you're streaming. I find this functionality incredibly useful now that I don't have to pause my Annie Lifts playlist on Spotify every time I open a new video. But on top of that, Opera also offers you a quick import tool. I know what you're saying.
All these other browsers have my history and my passwords.
All of those can be imported into Opera GX like that. All you have to do is go to browser settings, click synchronization, import bookmarks and settings, and then import, and you're done. So once again, thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring today's video. Use the link in my description or my pinned comment to download Opera GX today. It's about time a web browser helped us watch anime faster. See, Shisui was an incredible character, very interesting, powerful at a young age, best friends with Itachi, who was a fan favorite, and he has one of the most dangerous things in anime on his side: unrealized potential. You see, Shisui was one of the youngest wielders of the dual MS ever, and his Mongiko Sharingan ability of Koto Matsukame allowed him to completely rewrite people's entire personalities without them knowing and without him needing to make eye contact. So a character that people highball an adult version of him at the power of Madara dying off, well, didn't sit right with a lot of people. And therefore, ever since his death was revealed in the manga, people have theorized that he was never truly dead, and that instead he waits in the wings, waiting to sweep in at a crucial moment and save all of Naruto. And today, we're gonna explore that theory. But before we get to exploring anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And while you're at it, guys, please go ahead and follow my other two YouTube pages, NC Gamer 23, where instead of talking anime, I play video games, and Hammer's Collection, where instead of talking anime while sitting in this chair, I talk it while I build those giant statues. So, Shisui, an iconic character loved almost at the level of Itachi, and that's because him and Itachi were basically carbon copies of each other. Powerful young Anbu Black Ops members with infinite potential. But the difference between Itachi and Shisui is that Shisui didn't have a chakra disease, and therefore Shisui shouldn't have been as easily killed as Itachi. I mean, if we say that Itachi and Shisui were close to each other in strength, Itachi has wiped out the likes of Orochimaru, several Jinchuriki. He went toe-to-toe with Sasuke while he was basically dying and still was only fighting him to pull Orochimaru out of him. So how would a character at that level of strength simply pass away? Well, that's a good question, because the anime and the manga don't do an incredible job of painting the story of Shisui's death. To get a better image of Shisui's death, we actually had to look towards the light novels, specifically Itachi Shinden Book 1 and 2. do. But we're not going to talk about the light novels just yet, because we're going to talk about this theory that Shisui is somewhere out there watching over Konoha. This theory is built on the back of a couple of points. In the anime and manga, Shisui's death is a bit hazy. In the anime and the manga, as we understand Shisui's death, Shisui goes to a meeting with Danzo, and it's at this point that Danzo jumps Shisui and steals one of his eyes. But why does Danzo jump Shisui when Shisui was actually working for Danzo as a member of the Root? Well, yes, it is true that Shisui and Itachi were working for Danzo as members of the Root, keeping an eye on the Uchiha for him, and therefore they were making reports back to Danzo about when the coup was going to happen in the Uchiha clan. However, because Shisui was tapped into both the sides of Danzo and the Uchiha, he formulated his own plan. The plan was to use his Kodo Matsukame, his Mangekyo Sharingan ability, to rewrite Fugaku's entire plan. Basically, Shisui wanted to put Fugaku under a permanent genjutsu that would make him feel as though the Uchiha clan was respected within Konoha, with the idea that if the clan leader softened his stance on the coup and therefore taught all of the Uchiha to live in Konoha in unity, that the coup could be avoided entirely. However, Shisui's greatest mistake was telling this plan to Danzo. You see, Danzo didn't like this plan at all. Danzo had a distrust for the Uchiha because his greater goal was to always make sure that Konoha was being protected, regardless of the means. And the fact that the Uchihas even had a little bit of distrust in Konoha's rule meant to him that they had to be eliminated. So this plan of not eliminating them, which was always Danzo's greater scheme, didn't really jibe with him. And because of this, when Shisui tells Danzo his plan, Danzo says that his Kodo Matsukame would be better served if he had them. That is to say that Danzo would make more proficient use of the Kodo Matsukame than Shisui. And then in the anime and the manga, Shisui, after losing one of his Kodo Matsukame, flees to a meeting with Itachi, because Shisui was supposed to use the Kodo Matsukame on Fugaku that night, and then after he did it, he was supposed to meet with Itachi. However, after Shisui meets with Itachi, he tells Itachi that his plan's been discovered. And knowing now that Danzo would most likely out him as a spy in the Uchiha, Shisui decided to commit suicide. And Shisui commits suicide by plucking out his other Kodo Matsukame, calling a raven down, placing it in that raven, and then telling that raven to follow Itachi. Shisui then casts himself over a waterfall and commits suicide that way. You see, this standard explanation didn't sit well with a lot of fans. People stated that even if Shisui was blind, he was still an Anbu captain. Falling into some water wasn't gonna kill him. I mean, we see ninjas get punched into rocks so hard they leave actual craters. Falling on a couple of rocks from a few hundred feet up probably wouldn't kill an Anbu captain. And honestly, that's fair. Naruto quite literally has small planet level durability. We've even seen weaker ninjas than Shisui, like Konohamaru, get tossed into rocks and leave craters, or cut trees in half with their bodies as they fly backwards. So to assume that Shisui's dying on fall damage alone is a bit of a stretch. On top of this, there's a data book entry in the 4th data book that states that Shisui feigned his suicide. Feigning obviously meaning to fake. So the average person reading this data book sees that and goes, he faked his suicide, that must mean he's still alive. And this point is even further corroborated by the fact that during the 4th Great Shinobi Worlds War, Itachi states that Shisui erased his existence after giving him his last Kodo Matsukame. Not died, committed suicide, anything like that, simply erased his existence. And the lack of a definitive term of death from Itachi does lead a lot of people to look at that statement and say, does Itachi know that Shisui's still alive? People go even so far as to state that in Boruto opening number 5, there's a cloaked figure that looks a lot like an Uchiha, and they state that the way that this cloaked figure fights is very similar to a Sharingan wielder because it's able to predict the movements of a lot of his enemies. People even go so far as to say that Obito had a lab full of Sharingan, so hypothetically Shisui could get eyes back. And even though these eyes wouldn't be Kodo Matsukame, they would still be Sharingan. So Shisui hypothetically would be able to use Sharingan abilities as he watches over Konoha. People even go so far as to say that those Sharingans might have given him dimensional travel abilities. I mean, we've seen the Sharingan have the ability to travel between dimensions, like with Kamui. And people say that this point is corroborated by the fact that in chapter 687, there is a figure in the back of the fight against Kaguya, seen far, far behind Obito, that appears to be watching over the fight. And that person could hypothetically be Shisui, who was able to travel to Kaguya's dimension using the dimensional abilities gifted to him with his new Sharingan. So we all understand the theory now? Cool. I'm gonna get into why this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. As I stated earlier, the events surrounding Shisui's death in the anime and manga are hazy at best. To assume that Shisui died of jumping off a waterfall while blind is a bit of a stretch, I will admit. However, that's where the light novels come in, specifically, like I stated earlier, Itachi Shinden books 1 and 2. These books do an incredible job of painting the time that Itachi and Shisui spent in the Anbu Black Ops and in the Root. And essentially, they give us the best view into the building of the Uchiha coup out there. In these books, we get to see things like Itachi and Shisui take on people like Mukai Kohinata, who have a Byakugan in one eye and are so proficient in Junto Fist they can cut fireballs in half. We even get a look into Kakashi and Itachi coming into a battle against Obito. Arguably, they're the best light novels that Naruto's ever made. I highly recommend you read them if you're interested. But in these light novels, we get a much better portrait painted of how Shisui died. Just like in the anime and the manga, Shisui goes to report his plan to Danzo. However, Danzo is already aware of Shisui's plan. He's Danzo. He knows everything. And since Danzo is already aware that Shisui is going to try to use his Kodo Matsukame and therefore close it for 10 years, Danzo wants to get his hand on it before Shisui can do that. Therefore, Danzo pulls up to their meeting with several Root members in hiding, the most important of which is Yoji Aburame. Yoji Aburame was a genius amongst the Aburame, so much so that he was actually the only person in recent Aburame history able to use a new specific kind of bug. And this type of bug was called the Kochu. The Kochu is terrifying. It's about the size of a mosquito, but it packs a much larger punch than one. The Kochu is able to paralyze a target with one singular bite. But here's the thing, it doesn't stop at that. After paralyzing the target, it also poisons the target. And that poison is untraceable, meaning that if you do an autopsy on this body, the poison won't appear. So when Shisui pulls up to this meeting with Danzo, Yoji Aburame releases a bunch of Kochu to bite Shisui. And then Shisui is paralyzed by this Kochu bite. This is why Danzo was able to get the upper hand on Shisui and steal one of his eyes. However, the pain of having one of his eyes ripped out of his face snaps Itachi out of the paralysis, and then he's able to flee the scene. However, unfortunately, breaking out of the paralysis isn't enough to save you from the Kochu. See, Shisui knew he had been poisoned, as after biting him, Yoji Aburame had emerged from the shadows, and Shisui, being a member of the Root, knew Yoji's abilities. Therefore, when Shisui comes to his meeting with Itachi, he knows he's dying, and this is why he elects to give his other eye to Itachi. Think about it, like truly think about it. Do you think Shisui, after losing an eye, would just be like,
Nah, I'm good. I'll just go commit suicide?
no, that wouldn't make any sense. He still has one Kodo Matsukame. He could still enact his plan on Fukaku, or he could have teamed up with Itachi to kill Danzo. Being exposed as an Uchiha spy really wasn't gonna do that much to Shisui. People already suspected that him and Itachi were spies. So why, upon being attacked by Danzo, would he be just like,
You know what? Danzo's right. I'll just kill myself.
However, knowing that he was poisoned and knowing that he was gonna die soon, he told Itachi to kill him. You see, this ties into Black Zetsu editing the stone tablet. You see, Black Zetsu edited the stone tablet to make the Uchihas believe that they had to murder somebody close to them in order to awaken their Mongekyo Sharingan. This is why Madara and his brother Izuna murdered a close friend of theirs during the Warring States period to awaken their MS. And Shisui had pseudo confirmed these results with the awakening of his own Mongekyo Sharingan, when Shisui withheld his aid for one of his close friends because he was envious of his power. And therefore, in Shisui's mind, by withholding that aid, he had killed said friend. Shisui, realizing that Itachi would be better suited in this world with the Mongekyo Sharingan, then told Itachi to kill him. And so Itachi kills him, thus awakening his own MS. And this is where the 4th data book entry comes in. You see, Shisui did feign his suicide because Shisui and Itachi wanted everyone to believe that Shisui had committed suicide. This is why Shisui left a suicide note. However, this was both to protect Itachi and the mission. You see, if Itachi had been like,
Hey, just got back from murdering Shisui because he got attacked by Danzo.
the coup would have happened just like that, and Sasuke would have been put in danger. Therefore, in order to make sure that the coup didn't happen, they had to make Shisui's death look like a suicide. Because if it came out that Itachi and Shisui were spies for the Root, the coup would happen immediately. And there was no way to explain away them not being spies unless Shisui committed suicide. Also, if somehow they were able to explain away Itachi killing Shisui without them being spies coming out, Itachi would more likely not be expelled from the Uchiha clan, because Shisui was quite literally their pride and joy. As for Itachi stating that Shisui erased his existence, well, that's a bit harder to explain. For that, unfortunately, we have to look at Naruto from a 4th wall perspective. Shisui cannot come back to life. If Shisui had come back to life, the 4th Great Shinobi World War would have ended like that. Let's just say hypothetically Shisui's body was found, and he was Edo Tensei back in the 4th grade Shinobi World War, which by the way, he could have been, mind you, because Obito did have Danzo's body, and in Danzo's right hand, he crushed the Kodo Matsukame upon dying. But just because the Kodo Matsukame eye was destroyed doesn't mean there's not still Shisui's DNA in that. Kabuto could have just done a little swipe, and then boom, Shisui's back. So why wasn't Shisui brought back? Well, mostly because Obito said that Kabuto shouldn't bring back Shisui or Jiraiya, but also because Kishimoto didn't want them to come back. See, Kishimoto has openly stated that he didn't want to bring Jiraiya back during the 4th grade Shinobi World War because it would have complicated things for Naruto. Kishimoto didn't know how to write that emotional arc into the 4th grade Shinobi World War. As for Shisui coming back, he would be able to use Kodo Matsukame at least twice. So he could have Kodo Matsukame'd somebody like Naruto and Sasuke and just had them switch to Madara's side. Or if he was turned before he was able to use Kodo Matsukame, they could have just Kodo Matsukame'd Madara and Kaguya, and then bing bang boom, we got the strongest good guys of all time. And I know, you can be broken out of Kodo Matsukame as easily as you can be broken out of any other genjutsu. All you have to do is be able to see that somebody's chakra network has been disrupted and therefore they're in a genjutsu, and then break them out of it. But still, the presence of Kodo Matsukame on the battlefield during the 4th grade Shinobi World War would have had a huge presence. And that's assuming that it still has its 10-year cooldown with an Edo Tensei body. Because mind you, Edo Tensei bodies have infinite regeneration. Therefore, to assume that the cooldown would be substantially shorter than 10 years is not crazy. Therefore, from a plot perspective, Shisui understood that his power could be abused and therefore had to erase his existence. See, the existence of Edo Tensei wasn't secret knowledge. Hell, the second Hokage had been using it to explode dummy corpses on the front lines of wars for about 40 years. Therefore, understanding that Edo Tensei would bring his Kodo Matsukame possibly back into the hands of Danzo, he had to erase his presence. And therefore, he threw his body into a place that it would never be found. Which we've seen with Jiraiya. By casting your body to the deepest, darkest parts of a water basin, it's hard to get it. Even though Amado was able to acquire his cells, but that's not that crazy when you consider the fact that Jiraiya lost an arm during that fight that never sank, so he could have just grabbed that, or he could have got blood off of any of Pain's weapons. As for the cloaked figure in Boruto's opening number 5, no. The arc is about Urashiki. Like, it's an anime canon arc. Why would Shisui be in there? As for the whole, like, Shisui's watching over the world, waiting for the perfect time to come back in. The war would have been a pretty good time for that. And even let's assume that he does have his Kodo Matsukame back or some other Sharingan ability. What about when they fought Ishiki? Could have helped Sasuke with Kara. Hell, man, he could have helped get Hinata back from the moon.
But who's to say he's even in this plane of existence? He could have got different eyes from Obito.
Shisui never met Obito. Itachi doesn't meet Obito until after Shisui's death. And it's at that point that Itachi and Madara plan to kill the Uchiha clan together. So how was Shisui supposed to make it to Obito's lair to get a Sharingan if he never met Obito? Was he supposed to just like feel out getting to Obito's lair with no eyes? That's not even to mention the fact that Obito didn't have those Sharingan until a year and some change after Shisui's death. Because Obito collected all of the Sharingan after the Uchiha massacre, which doesn't happen for at least another year after Shisui dies. And lastly, the person watching over Kaguya's fight is probably just one of Team 7 in the background. That fight was in another dimension, which would imply that Shisui would have to be able to tap into other dimensions with his new Sharingan found abilities to watch a fight? Why wouldn't he step in? Also, the only reason that they were able to get to Kaguya's dimension is because Obito and Kakashi were able to follow her using Kamui. Listen, I love theories as much, if not more, than the next guy. But there's a reason I put so much research into my theories, because, well, let's be real, I don't want to end up like this one. I think it's fun to have ideas like this that stretch the bounds of what we've seen within lore, but it all should be based off the facts that we're given. And while I want Shisui to come back to life as much as the next guy, we have to be real. He's gone. He was meant to act as a character-building character for Itachi. However, just like with Izanami and Izanagi, the abilities he introduced were too powerful to have in the late stages of Naruto, and therefore he had to be Control-Alt-Deleted. But what do you guys think of this theory? Do you have any better points to point me in the direction that Shisui may still be alive? Tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, I'm not trying to gatekeep here, but before you start making theories, please read the light novels.